Good morning. I'm Mr. Grobler, and I'm glad to be with you. I'm a life sciences teacher, and I've been teaching for more than 20 years. So I'm here to give you good advice for what you should be looking out for in paper 1. Later on this morning, you'll also get some tips and tricks for paper 2. So this is general advice that we've seen over the years where learners make mistakes and they lose marks unnecessarily. So can I ask you for the next minute or two, if you don't have writing paper with you, please get some paper quickly from a friend. So do that now, even while I'm chatting to you. Get some paper ready that you can make some notes. These notes I would like you to keep with you and carefully follow the instructions I'm giving you today, because we are here to help you. Remember, the Free State Province, you've heard, for the last few years, we've been number 1 in the country when it comes to life sciences results. And this program, as we have here with this internet broadcasting program, has contributed a lot in giving good results in many subjects, including life sciences. So that's what we want for you. We want you to do the best that you can do. Some of you will be scoring 80%, some 60%, and some will be aiming just to pass. But we don't want anybody to fail. There's no reason why you should fail. And today I want to highlight some of the pitfalls that some learners lose marks unnecessarily. So do you have your paper ready? I'm glad that you can make some notes so that you can do well. Remember, there's a mistake that many of our South African students make, and that is that they think they are fine, they will pass. And just now when I said, set yourself a goal, I know that some of you would set unrealistic goals. Don't think a 60% come for nothing. Even passing. Life sciences gives you the opportunity to pass and to get that 90 out of 300 that you need to pass. Of course, you'll be aiming for higher marks. But I'm telling you that 90, many learners don't get it. Many learners score in the 20%. Why? Because they're not honest with themselves. Learners are lying to themselves by saying, I will be okay, when we as teachers know you're not really okay. So please, we are pleading with you, follow the instructions we're giving you today carefully. Promise yourself that you will do these things that we're telling you so that you can pass. Now, I want to give you some information about us as markers at the end of the year. Remember, what you will be writing in November on your script will be marked by somebody. And you want to write in such a way that that person will give you maximum marks according to the instructions given to him or her as a marker by the National Education Department. So I want to highlight to you a few pitfalls where learners lose marks unnecessarily. Like, for instance, please make a note of that. If the question paper demands of you to write 3 reasons, then the instruction to us as markers is we need to mark the first 3 reasons. So please write down then the 3 reasons that are most correct. You write them down first, because we need to mark the first 3. If maybe your number 3 is incorrect but your number 4 is correct, then we are not supposed to mark that 4th one. We must mark the first 3 correct reasons. That's the first tip I want to give you. Then if comparisons are asked, and you must now compare, you need to compare what you have in a table on the left-hand side must be the same topic as what you have on the right-hand side. Like, let's say we ask you to compare the functioning of adrenaline as a hormone in comparison to insulin and the effect it has on blood sugar levels, the concentration of glucose in the blood. Then you must say on the one side, you must say insulin lowers the blood glucose levels, while adrenaline increases the glucose levels in the blood. You can't say on the one side, here you're writing that it lowers it. On the other side, you're saying it is secreted by the adrenal glands. You see, that's another topic. When you talk about where it is secreted, you must stick to the same topic, what you're comparing on the one side as to the other. Remember that. And if we ask for tabulate, please look for that word. If we ask for tabulate, and here I would just like to show you on the paper. if you see the word tabulate or draw a table, maybe they will say, it means you must go and draw this cross. Before you write anything, you do this. Why? Because even if a learner doesn't know much, what we do as markers, we are instructed to give you a mark for the fact that you followed the instructions to tabulate. Even before you've written, we give you a mark there for the fact that you've drawn a table. And we have seen, markers will tell you, and senior markers and moderators and so on, that some learners, when the question paper says tabulate, they miss that word. So please look out for the word to tabulate, that we can give you that mark. Some learners just simply then write a paragraph there, and then they lose that point. That's unnecessary to lose marks like that. Then, if we say describe or discuss, it means you need to describe it in a paragraph form. Then you must not draw a flow chart with words and arrows. Is that clear for you? No, don't do that. You are going to lose many points. If you see the word in the question paper, discuss, you can even circle that word. Or like tabulate, you circle the word tabulate. Read slowly, don't be quick to read over your question. Circle the word and say, all right, what must I do? I must tabulate. Or in this case, I need to discuss or describe. That means write in a paragraph form in that case. Then you must not ever draw words and arrows, like a flow chart, or draw sketches to explain. No, don't do that. If it says discuss, you discuss it. Also, be careful of abbreviations. Sometimes we're in a hurry, we feel we're pushed for time, but please don't use abbreviations. If there are official abbreviations, like at the hormones, capital letters ADH is used officially in the textbook, then you can use it. And it's also advisable to start off by writing the word out. As I'm writing here on this paper, antidiuretic hormone. You can use that first in your sentence. And you write in brackets ADH, antidiuretic hormone. Then you write it out, and from there, in the next sentence, you can then refer to the abbreviation. But rather stay away from abbreviations. And in general, don't make up any abbreviations because the markers are not familiar with your particular abbreviations. Then you will be responsible to number your own question paper. Like if I'm writing here, carefully concentrate. Now you've numbered there 1.1.1. Don't lose concentration in the numbering because you never want to confuse the marker. Concentrate on the way you are numbering. Then with the language you use, it's another tip I want to give you. Carefully think in the way you express yourself. Ask yourself after you've written the sentence, ask yourself, if somebody would read this, would that person understand what I've written here? Think of your words, get your words straight to make sense. Because we've often seen with learners, they do understand the concept, but what is written on the paper has another meaning. So get your words in order, put it in a structure that it makes sense, that it's understandable for the person who's going to mark it. And write your sentences as complete as possible. Some of us, and myself when I was at university, I also made that mistake where I understand the work and then I get my results and I get 60%. While I know I understand the work 80%. Then I compared myself with those learners who got 80% and I saw I was too quick. I just got to the point in a short sentence. You've got enough time. The 2.5 hours for 150 minutes, you plan well, that is enough time. And by the way, you know the format of the paper. You know section A. It is just like September and June. Section B with the 2 40-mark questions, question 2 and question 3. Then question 4 comes with the long question of 20 marks, the essay question. So you know the format. Plan your time accordingly. 2.5 hours are enough. Write sentences as complete as possible. Often learners get 1 mark out of 2. A question counts 2 marks, then they get 1 mark only. But if he would just write it completely, because he's got the knowledge in his mind, write it completely that you can get 2 out of 2 instead of 1 out of 2. That's a difference between 80% and 50%, because 1 out of 2 is already 50%. You don't want to lose marks when you have the knowledge. So also, if you look at some other points that you can remember, and what we will be looking for as people marking your papers, there will be many markers coming from all the parts of the Free State looking at your work. And it goes through many hands at the marking session. There's senior markers, there's deputy chief markers, there's the examiner, chief examiner, there's moderators. So we will be checking thoroughly. And for something like the following, if you read in the instruction of the question and it says write the number only, and let me just use the example here on the paper. If it says like 1.1.1, indicate the option, choose A, B, C or D. Write down the letter only. The instruction says so. What some learners do, they go and they write the word because they feel, no, they want to make it clear. No, don't do that. That we will not mark it. It must be the letter only. If we say choose the letter, you write A. If that's the option, then we want the letter only and we credit you with marks there. So please, if it says give a description, in some questions it will say write down, let's say question 2. Write down, let me just show you here on the paper. If it says write down the letter, this is now in question 2. This will never be the case in question, it's sometimes in question 1, but sometimes in more of the case in question 2 and 3. Write down the letter and the label that identifies something. Then you write, for instance, there, let's say it's question 2.1.2. Then you say it's letter A was the label, and the answer there was the lens of the eye. Then we give, the markers will give a mark for the letter and the word. But in section A, when we ask for the letter only, you write the letter only. Please, do you get the message I'm trying to convey? Take your time to read the question paper and read it thoroughly, and then follow the exact instructions in the question paper. Otherwise, you lose marks. Now, also when it comes to calculations, if we say calculate the volume of water that was, let's say, lost by the plant, then you do the correct calculation, you show all your calculations. If I can just show you here on the, you show all your calculations, then you get to a final answer, let's say it's 26. What some learners then forget, they forget to write the unit. And that's also where they lose more unnecessary marks, and it can be the difference between passing and failing. And that's what you said, all of you want to pass. So work towards that. Remember these things I'm telling you today. You do the calculation, then normally you're credited with a mark for the calculation. You get the answer, and we're also looking for the unit, whether it's percentage or milliliters or cubic centimeters, whatever the case may be. Write the unit, please. Then, a last point I want to highlight, what we've seen over the years and where learners make a mistake. Whenever we ask you to draw a table, a graph, anything, even we may ask you to draw sketches. Now, when it comes to sketches, you must draw it in pencil and you give the labels in pen. But if it's a diagram that you're drawing, if it's a graph, or if it is a table that you have to draw, you always must write first a heading, because we give marks for the heading. In some cases, it could even be 2 marks. Please write that heading, and it mustn't be a short heading, something like learner results versus exams. Don't keep it short. Don't write it in a lazy way, because that's where you're losing marks. Make it a descriptive heading. Like, for instance, learner results for the September exams at ABC High School for Life Sciences grade 12. You see, it's a complete heading. Make it clear for the reader that he can see I'm clear with what this graph will be all about. Let me just say again, for instance, learner results at ABC High School for September 2014 Life Sciences. You give details there. Normally it will be about like one line. You underline your heading and then you're ready to draw your graph. So please remember a heading for any diagram you're making, any graph you're drawing, any table, whatever you draw on that exam script of yours. Remember the caption because we are giving marks for that. Now just to highlight again what you will see when you open your question paper at the end of the year. And by the way, I've not seen that paper, but I can give general advice, such as the instructions. The instructions given in the front. Let's just look at the instructions that you will be getting. And as I said earlier, everything when it comes to the format of the paper will be exactly the same as the exemplar you got. Please use your exemplar papers. Also, what you got in June and now in September, the format of section A with multiple choice first, a certain number of marks, then give correct terminology, and then match, choose, does this statement apply to A, to B, both or none of them? And then some other short questions for 50 marks. Then you go into question 2 and 3, and then the long question, the 20 marks for section C, which is question 4. Now, these instructions that you see here will also be the same. So when you open your paper, it will be familiar for you in November. You will see there, look at number 1. There will be no choices in life sciences. You will have to answer all the questions. And that's why you can't leave anything out in your preparation. Study everything. Now before we look at these instructions, I'm now going to give you the single most important tip for a learner who would like to pass. Now you must take note of this. This document, now I've got a green copy here, yours is probably a white copy, but you must have it. Your teacher must have given it to you. If your teacher has not given the examination guidelines, look there, it's an official document. We were supposed to give it to our learners. This is a legal document in the sense that the examiners must ask according to the scope inside this document. They may not ask anything outside the scope. So look there, it says 2014, it's for grade 12, it's for life sciences, and the way to go about it, it gives you the format and so on, but inside it tells you what is in paper 1 and what is in paper 2. Let me just use an example here. Let me open here at human reproduction here on page 8. Then you see, oh, this is paper 1. They're going to ask more or less 30 marks in paper 1. More or less 30 out of 150 will be asked from human reproduction. 30 or 31, maybe it can be 32 or 33, but more or less 30 marks will come out of 150 from this topic. It will also give you indication of the weightage of this topic in the question paper. So what do I need to know? Then it starts off with introduction. Then it says there, review the schematic outline of the human life cycle to show the role of meiosis, mitosis, and fertilization. Then you open your textbook and you go check in the textbook, where is this? You find it, you study it, and once you're done with it and you've tested yourself, please test yourself before we test you, that you can be sure what's going on. Don't lie to yourself. Be honest. Some people convince themselves they are fine. And they haven't studied, but they go into the exam room and they say, I will be okay. But I'm telling you that many of our learners in the province at this moment are not okay. In the past, a great number have failed. A great number did score in the 20% and so on. So don't lie to yourself. Go to this document, read there, go to the textbook, study the notes the teacher has given you on that topic, and once you say, I know this topic, then you test yourself, or let your friend test you, or explain the work then to your friend on this. Let me read again what it says here. Review the schematic outline of the human life cycle to show the role of meiosis, mitosis, and fertilization. So what you do, you go to that spot in the textbook and you explain to your friend. Because if you can explain it, you can do it. And don't use any other language in what you're going to write in. If you're going to write in English, then you do it in English. If you're going to write in English, don't explain to your friend in Afrikaans or Sotho or any other language. Explain to your friend in English, because you're not doing this primarily for your friend to understand. You're testing yourself to see, do I understand the work? Because if I can explain it to my friend, it means I understand it. But I'm going to use English, and if your friend says to you, listen, what you said now doesn't make sense, it means the marker at the end of the year will also say the same, and that will be a cross for you. So learn to express yourself by doing that. So once you've done that, you tick off that topic. I've gone to the textbook, I've studied it, and I've explained it to somebody. I've tested myself, therefore I can tick it off. Now I move to the next one. So what does it say? Structure of the male reproductive system. Then I open the textbook at the diagram there of the male reproductive system. I study all the labels, and what does it say here? I must be able to identify all the labels, and I must be able to give the functions of what? Of all these different parts. So now you go quickly and you check the labels. Do I know where each of these parts are in the diagram? Do I know the functions of, let's say, the epididymis? If you look at there, then you say to yourself, no, I don't know. Now that's no problem. Then you go and you go study the work. Then you go check, what is the function? And what some learners do, they look there, they see epididymis, I must know the function, and then they move on to the next topic, female reproductive structure. No. Always first stand still and ask yourself, do I now know, tick off there, the functions of each? And you do this by explaining it to your friend. If you can do that, this is what we're going to ask, or not myself, but the examiner probably will ask these things. And if you have tested yourself and you get to the exams and you write the functions of these because you've tested yourself before the time, then you are going to score marks. And marks is what you want. You want to pass. And let me emphasize again, it's not going to come automatically. We have seen as teachers, and myself, I work with hundreds of matrics around, especially in the Bloemfontein area, and I've seen they lie to themselves to say, I am okay, when I'm not okay. So then once you've done all of that, you come here to the prostate gland, you know the function of it, you tick it off. Then you move to the next topic. So it's a must. You must work with this document in hand. But I want to ask you learners, and there where you're sitting, see if you can answer this question. What do you need in order to follow this system that I've got here? Can you tell your friend? What do you need in order to follow this system? It is time. You need time. So now you must go and schedule time for yourself to say, I can see this is going to take time. But we've seen with our learners all over matrics are wasting time. Some matrics will be able to go through all of this. Some will not be able to. Why not? Do some have more than 24 hours a day? No. All of us have 24 hours a day. But you must be focused. You must set time aside. Don't hang around. Get stuck in this and work systematically through it. What I like about this, we don't just give you the textbook and say, there's a textbook. You can see it here. Study the textbook. No, we don't do that. What we do is we make it easy for you in life sciences. We say, there's examination guidelines. Work point by point according to this. Now you've got a scope, you've got a framework with which you can work. And that's nice. Because some learners are simply overwhelmed when they get the whole textbook. It is just too much for them to say, I must go study all of this. They don't know where to start. But now you've got a structure, and you must realize you're going to need time. Go sit down, don't waste time, get through this. If you're not going to do it, you run the risk of failing. So that is the clear reality. And that's what I always tell learners. Wherever I go in the Free State Province, I tell them, get real. Don't fool yourself. You can fail life sciences. What as myself as a teacher in life sciences, what I love about the subject, it rewards you. It is fair. So what happens is that you study and you will do well. You don't study and you will fail. You know, I've done many subjects at university where I would study very hard and then I would write a test and fail it. And I felt that was not fair. But that is tough. That is how life is sometimes. But life sciences is not like that. It's fair. You study and you do well. You don't study, you are going to fail. Like one American president said, if you fail to prepare, you must prepare to fail. So you are going to get stuck in this work. What you need is to allow yourself time. Please use your time wisely. So just coming back to the instructions that you will see again, let's just look at it again here on the paper. Write all the answers in your answer book. Of course, you can use the question paper to write there and do your rough work on your question paper. That question paper is yours. Even afterwards, you take it home. So you can work on your question paper, but the one that you're going to hand in is the answer book. You write all your answers there. That's the official book. Start the answers to each question at the top of a new page. So when you come to the end of all the questions in question 2, you draw a line, and then you move a new heading on the next page, question 3. Number the answers correctly according to the numbering system used in the question paper. Present your answers according to the instructions. And let me just circle this for you. You must not rush through the paper. You read each question's instructions. What are they asking? Should I discuss? If they say discuss, I'm not going to draw sketches, for instance. Then do all drawings in pencil, as I said, and label them in blue or black ink. People, please, let me give you the advice. If you love a blue pen, you start off, you bring 2 or 3 pens all in blue to the exam room. Don't just bring one. You bring 2 or 3 or even more, but then you stick to blue. Don't move between blue and black, because some people can say, now it's somebody else who started writing for you. You stick to the one color ink throughout. And then you also, please, do not change your handwriting. If you start writing in a certain style, some people get tired, then they change their handwriting. You stick to that same handwriting. Then number 7, draw diagrams, tables, or flow charts only when asked to do so. So if they ask you to draw a table, you draw a table, but only then. The diagrams in this question paper are not necessarily drawn to scale, okay? Do not use graph paper. We will not give you that. You just use your script. You're going to write on that. And you must bring with you. What are you going to take into the exam room? Pen and pencil and rubber, obviously. Bring a non-programmable calculator. Protractor and compass, you bring it. You must bring it for life sciences, because you may get a pie chart. Remember, go practice how to draw a pie chart. Bring it with the protractor and the compass, otherwise you will not be able to draw a pie chart if they ask you, like 2 or 3 years ago, a pie chart was asked, and then some learners had to make plans how to draw that, and they were inaccurate in drawing it. Bring a protractor and compass, pen and pencil, rubber, that's all you need. And number 11, you'd be surprised. For us as markers, we want to be fair. But sometimes you simply cannot read what the learner has written. So make it user-friendly. Make your paper user-friendly for the marker. That means at least you're going to write in a certain way that the marker must not battle to work out what is written here. And then in some cases, if an A looks like an O or something, it can change the meaning of the word, and then the marker has to mark it wrong. So you must write clearly and neat. You don't have to rush as fast as you can just to get out, that you can go sit in the sun outside. Right, so for this moment I want to look at a few skills. In 15 minutes we will have our break, but I'm sure you are glued to the screen. So for the next 15 minutes I want to highlight some skills. We test knowledge in the papers, but you need some skills. Now these skills you've been practicing in each and every paper since grade 10. Paper 1 and paper 2 practicals, you got these skills tested over and over again. Some learners still battle with them, but I want you to go practice these skills, that when you get to the paper that you know exactly what to do. So I want to focus first of all at the scientific, and I want to show you on the paper I've written here, the scientific method of doing things. You know, when you're a scientist like myself, I'm trained as a scientist. I studied at the University of the Free State, got my honours degree. I'm a scientist actually, and I ended up in teaching because that's what I love doing most. A scientist will always investigate a certain problem. Like for instance, let me create a problem. does the brightness of light really influence how fast the plant grows? That's a question I've got. I don't know. So what I must do, I must set out a hypothesis. Look at the word here, hypothesis. That means it's an idea I've got, a prediction I make, a short prediction statement. Then I will design an experiment, and in the end, after I've gathered my results and I've analyzed my results, I will accept my hypothesis or I will reject the hypothesis. That is the scientific method of doing things. So a hypothesis, what is it not? It is not a question. Never write a question mark. You see what I'm going to do now? I'm writing the question mark and I'm going to take this big cross. A hypothesis is never a question. Please write down there on your piece of paper you've got there that you're going to keep, and you're going to keep this paper next to you when you study. A hypothesis is a short prediction statement. That means I'm predicting that this will be the outcome, and this one is affecting that one. Let me use an example. The higher the insulin concentration, square brackets can be used for concentration. The higher the insulin concentration in the blood, the lower the glucose will be in the blood. Glucose concentration will be in the blood. Do you see here? I've got the one affecting the other. And how is it affecting? When the one goes higher, the other one goes lower. So sometimes in exams we even give 3 marks for this. One for the one causing the effect, and the other mark for the effect. And how is it affecting the other one? There you've scored 3 marks. Do you see no question mark there? Do you see in my hypothesis here, I'm not trying to explain why insulin really lowers the glucose levels? No explanation, please. It's a one-liner. I wrote a bit big here, that's why it's going over 2 lines. But a hypothesis normally is not much longer than 1 line only. In a hypothesis, you don't try and explain the whole experiment. You don't give procedure or anything like that. You simply make a prediction. Like, the more it rains, the wetter the soil will be. Full stop. Or like I've got another one here. The more a matric learner studies, the better the results will be. So now we come to the one causing the effect, and the other one is the result itself. Now they ask you always, what is the dependent variable and what is the independent variable? The one causing the effect, like the more time you spend, the better the results will be. So the cause is the time, and the results, that will be depending on the time. So the results become the dependent variable. So in general, we can say, you know, in life sciences, we love to ask, in this question, what is, in this scenario we've sketched there for you with a certain experiment, what is the dependent variable and what is the independent variable? Well, I can say in general, the results you're gathering, any results you're gathering, let's say you're measuring growth at a plant at different brightness of light. In scientific language, we talk about light intensity. That means how bright is the light? Is it very bright? Is it medium? Or is it dim? The results you're measuring. Now, what will I be measuring? I will take my ruler and I will be measuring how has the plant grown since yesterday. Since yesterday, it has grown 10 millimeters. I measure it. All those results I write down in a table, and whatever I've measured, that normally is the dependent variable. It depends on something else. That is the dependent variable. And when I draw a graph, the dependent variable will, let me just show you here with the graph. With a graph, the dependent variable is always on the y-axis. And take note, this is how we mark graphs. We want to see that dependent variable there. And you are going to, according to scale, you are going to measure carefully the units here. See, I'm sticking to one color pen because that's what you're going to do. If you choose a blue pen, you're going to stick to it. So you just mark it there. And then you write in equal units. That's what we call scale: 10, 20, 30, 40. You can't write 10, 50, and then 60, and then 100. Make it equal units as you go up. And the same applies to this side. So the independent variable is always on the x-axis. Did you write it down there for yourself? The dependent variable is always on the y-axis. Now the way we mark a graph, we're looking for a heading, you do that first. You draw, and if we say a line graph, then you will draw a line graph. And people, graphs are the easiest things to interpret. We will always ask you to interpret a graph. Often we give you a graph to draw, and other times we ask you to interpret a graph. A graph is the easiest thing. You read the heading, you look what's on the y-axis, what is here, and is it going up, it's becoming more, is it staying the same, or is it going down? It's the easiest thing. A graph is a picture. It's very, very easy. So when you write here, like let's say the results you've gathered, like let's say I've gathered at a certain school the percentage scores, the marks of different learners. Then here, who's the independent variable? It's the names of the different learners. The different learners, like let's say Tando has caused his own results. He is the cause of the results. So the name will be the independent variable causing the results, which is, it depends, the dependent variable. So the dependent variable, the results, I must now say, in what did I measure the results? I measured it in percentage. That's the unit. You must always give the unit. So we will be giving a mark then here for the fact that you've got the dependent variable at the right axis. You've labeled the dependent variable. You've given the unit there even. The right type of graph will give you a mark for, will give you a mark here for the correct independent variable here with its unit, and also the scale, of course, will be correct. And then for the, I said the type, and then if you've plotted the points correctly, you can also get marks. So do you see in life sciences, if you prepare yourself well, go practice these things, you score a lot of points by doing things correctly. So that is the graph. So I want you to practice this quickly. Now for the next minute, I'm going to give you a problem. Say to your friend there, you don't even have to write it down. Just say there quickly, turn to the person next to you, work in pairs, and give everybody a chance. One can speak, and the other one can say, yes, I agree with that, or improve on what the person said. Here's my problem I want to investigate. Like I said, does light really, the brightness of the light, which we call in scientific terms light intensity, does it influence the growth rate of a plant? Growth rate, whenever you see the word rate, it means how fast. So does light intensity really influence how fast a plant grows? That's my question. I'm wondering about that. Now you tell your friend what will be the hypothesis. I'm giving you 1 minute. Turn to your friend, give the hypothesis, please. So now you've done that. You've probably said something like this. And please remember, you keep it simple. The brighter the light, the faster the plant will grow. There you can score 3 marks out of that. You see how simple. It's a short prediction. You just make a prediction, one-liner, that's it. So from that hypothesis you wrote, what is the dependent variable? Let me just write it here on the paper. What is the dependent variable and what is the independent variable? What are you going to measure there? Now the plant is growing. So you're measuring the growth of the plant. You can even measure it with a ruler. So the dependent variable will be the growth. And how did we, which unit did we use? We used, let's say, millimeters. Millimeters. So that's a dependent variable. What is the independent variable? It is the light intensity. What do I mean by light intensity? How bright the light is. Now I can say there, I've measured that in bulbs that I've used in the unit of watts. 20 watts or 60 watts or 90 watts. So that is then the independent variable it influences the dependent variable. So in a hypothesis, we're looking for both the dependent and the independent variable. So then they will ask you, so you've heard of a dependent variable, an independent variable, but what is a constant variable? The constant variable means if I test light intensity, I must keep all the other things the same. Like let's say temperature, I must keep temperature the same, the soil type of the plant, the same type of plant, everything I keep the same. The only thing I'm changing is the different light intensities. So we've got the dependent variable, we've got the independent variable, but the constant variables are all those things that we keep constant. Now, just before we're going to have the break, I just want to highlight a few more things for you, and perhaps we'll take 5 minutes for that. Just to conclude this session, we'll spend another 5 minutes now, and after that we'll have a 5-minute break. But you are probably going to get the question, how can you make this experiment more reliable? And the other word is, how can I make this experiment more valid? So-called reliability and validity of an experiment. Now you know what those words mean. Reliable means, can I trust the information? Doesn't help I do a scientific experiment and nobody can trust it. Or validity means, is it legal? Is it valid what I've got here? So what can make my results more reliable? And I always tell the learners to look at the letter R. Reliable means R, repeat. Repeat the experiment, have more participants. If you have a questionnaire, or do it with more plants, repeat it and get the average. Then you make it more reliable. What makes it valid, my whole investigation, is the fact that I'm keeping everything constant. Look at that word. I'm keeping all the factors constant, but I'm just changing the one variable, like in this case, light, that I tested. So please bring a calculator into the room, because you may do simple calculations such as percentages. Know how to do that. Know how to do ratio calculations. Diagrams we spoke about. Graphs. Remember, with a graph, a bar graph has got spaces between those bars that you draw on the graph. A histogram does not have spaces. A histogram, they're all next to one another. But sometimes they give you more information and they expect of you to group together. So like this, what I've got here is a bar graph. You're going to give the heading first of all. Now this is a bar graph, but now see, somebody will say, but sir, there's no spaces here between here. So here I've got, look at what I've got here. I'm comparing the marks of Thando and Peter for June and September. It's a combination of different sets of information. So now I must draw a key there. I've got on my y-axis the results, as I said, the dependent variable, and the independent variable are the learners here. There's their names. But Thando scored 50% in June, and he scored 60% in September, while Peter went down to 25% in September. So then I group them together. Here's the space for the bar graph I'm talking about. There's a space there. But Thando's information is grouped together and Peter's information is grouped together. So even with an experiment that you're going to get, what belongs together, you group together and then you make your space. In a histogram, there is no spaces. If we say draw a line graph, you draw a line graph. You follow the instructions. If we say draw a bar graph, you draw a bar graph. And just the last thing, you do not have to do what I've seen with some learners, what they do. They try and combine a bar graph with a line graph by drawing a line like that there. No, don't do that. If we say line graph, you do line graph only. If we say draw a bar graph, you draw a bar graph. Don't combine them. I hope you enjoy your break. I'll see you in 5 minutes. Don't go away. Thank you. So welcome back, and you must concentrate very carefully for the next 35 or 40 minutes, because what I'm going to do now, I'm going to, remember I said earlier that what's very important are the assessment guidelines, that you have a certain topic, like let's say meiosis, and then you tick off here what to study. But what I'm going to do here, and I said you must tick off every point after you studied. And you study every point. Don't spot certain points. You study every point and then you tick it off. But what I will be doing in the next 35 to 40 minutes, I'll be telling you the most important things of the different topics. So what you must do, write down these things. And when you get to this topic, you study these things first, because they are the most important. And then you go to the finer detail and you study the rest. Don't only go and study now just what I'm telling you now for paper 1. No, don't do that, please. I'm just highlighting for you what's most important, and then you also study everything. You study all of these points. But what we have seen that is really important, like for instance, when you come to this topic first, write down there for yourself, meiosis. Meiosis is the only topic that is asked in paper 1 as well as in paper 2. So what is the difference in the way we ask it? Well, you will hear later on this morning, in paper 2, we ask meiosis, the different phases that you must be able to identify what's happening during different phases, the prophase 1, discussing crossing over and the value of crossing over and so on, leading to variation, that type of thing. But in paper 1, you need to know what I'm going to show you here, and that is, look here at this word, spermatogenesis. Look there. You need to know not only the diagram, but understanding how are sperm cells really produced. When you look at what's happening inside the testis, exactly look at how the sperm cells are being produced. If you take one of these small tubes inside, you make it bigger under a microscope, you see how the sperm cells there are produced, what I'm showing you here on the paper. But step by step, how are they produced inside those seminiferous tubes? Look here, step by step. There's first meiotic division, then the primary spermatocytes change into a secondary spermatocyte, and then the second meiotic division happens, then the spermatids are formed, but they must first mature, and then we call them spermatozoa. So if they ask you to describe it or discuss it, remember, then you may not draw it like this. Maybe at the end of the year they give you a diagram like this, and they say you must fill in the missing parts. You just follow the instructions, but what I'm advising you, study spermatogenesis step by step, how it happens there. Then the same with oogenesis. And this diagram is very important. Oogenesis, what happens in the 28-day period from the primary follicle developing under the influence of different hormones, the secondary follicle, the tertiary follicle, which is also called the Graafian follicle, until day 14 when it releases the egg cell during ovulation, and then what happens after day 14 with the corpus luteum forming there. Study oogenesis as part of meiosis and go look at the description of it as shown here. Let me show you here. Just like in spermatogenesis, in oogenesis, you also have the first meiotic division, how it happens. You go study this. When it comes to paper 2, you look more into the details of prophase 1, metaphase 1, anaphase 1, and those details. So this is the first thing I want to highlight for you. Let's look at what is important to know when it comes to reproduction. Reproduction in vertebrates. Look here. Paper 1. It's going to be asked in paper 1. How many marks out of 150? 6 marks. So what do you need to know is only these few things. Terminologies, for instance, what is precocial, what is altricial, parental care, the influence of parental care. Look at the amniotic egg. Look at this here for 6 marks only, reproduction in vertebrates. So you're not going to spend 2 or 3 hours in studying that. You follow these guidelines. This is very important. When it comes to human reproduction, I mentioned earlier, you are going to study the male and the female systems. Look at the diagrams, labels, and functions of different parts. Are you writing down? Reproductive system, male and female, different parts, and their functions. That is important. I'm busy highlighting the most important things for you. Gametogenesis, we spoke about it. The formation of gametes, by means of spermatogenesis and oogenesis. We spoke about it. The menstrual cycle, probably you will see this in the form of a graph. Remember, and if I can just show you here quickly, that graph is always, it's not always asked, but I'm saying it's very important to understand the graph of the 4 hormones of the female system. So here on the x-axis, we've got time. And how are we measuring time? In this case, days, because we're talking about the 28-day cycle. Let's say here's day 14, here's day 28. So here's the heading. We are busy with the menstrual cycle. What do we mean by the menstrual cycle? It's the 28-day period. Some people think when we talk about the menstrual cycle, we're talking about menstruation. No, that's not the case. It's the 28-day period. And what do we have here on the y-axis? We've got hormone concentration. That means you take one woman and you test her blood every day from day 1, day 2, day 3, up to day 28. You draw blood from her. Then you analyze the 4 hormones. I'm going to draw them here in 4 different colors. Let's say the first one I'm going to make in red now for my explanation here, follicle stimulating hormone. That means I'm going to draw when is follicle stimulating hormone high and when is it lower. Then I'm going to use another color for that one called luteinizing hormone, LH. And you need to know where are all these hormones secreted. Then I'm going to have that very important hormone for female development. We don't say the O, we say estrogen. Estrogen with the E. Americans say estrogen. And then I've got another color here for that important one, progesterone. Remember that one. Remember the function of progesterone is to maintain the endometrium, that inside lining of the uterus, to tell it, stay there. That is, remember the hormones are messengers to give messages to say, this must happen or that must happen. So you need to know which of these hormones are high. If I would take a certain woman and she's in the menstrual cycle, the 28-day period, I draw blood from her and I analyze how much of each of these hormones are there at day 1. Then I plot the points on the graph. And eventually I can draw the graph. Like FSH will be high in the beginning. And then the questions will come, why? Why is FSH high in concentration in the first few days of the 28-day cycle? Then you will say, well, that stimulates the development of the primary follicle. Then LH. LH is low. And the question will be, from where is it secreted? And you will say from the pituitary gland or the hypophysis at the bottom of the brain. And it shoots up here by day 14. Why? Because it's the messenger to say ovulation must happen here at day 14. Then estrogen. Estrogen is always in reasonable concentration in the blood, but by day 14 it has a peak, and by day 21 another peak. So there is estrogen, and you need to know the functions of these hormones. Go study the functions of these hormones. Progesterone is always low here in the first 14 days. Do you know why is it low? Why does it shoot up after day 14? Because it is secreted by the corpus luteum. Remember inside, if I have here a diagram of the ovary. Remember the ovary is the big organ, you have drawn here the ovary, which releases by day 14 the small egg cell, which is called the ovum. Please don't mix up the word ovary with ovum. Ovary is the big organ. It is about the size of a nut. It's about that size. Just above your belt on the right-hand side and the left-hand side, women have got 2 ovaries. So she releases, a woman would release 1 ovum per month. If she releases the plural, ova, 2 of them, then she can have twins. If both of them are fertilized by a sperm cell each, then it's 2 non-identical twins. But for the ovary, this big organ releases the ovum, and then after day 14, what is left here? It's a structure called the corpus luteum. It literally means in English the yellow body, the corpus luteum. Now the corpus luteum is this one that secretes progesterone into the blood. Will you remember that? Corpus luteum secretes progesterone. So progesterone is then secreted, and that's why it only goes up from day 14, because the corpus luteum only exists after day 14, secreting progesterone. Therefore, it goes up. But the corpus luteum breaks down, and here by day 25, it starts to be quite small. By day 28, it's only a scar left, a small little dot that's left. That's why when the corpus luteum is gone, the progesterone is also not secreted anymore. And then they will ask you the functions of progesterone and why does menstruation start from here? Why is the menstruation after day 28? When we start the new cycle again, day 1, there's day 2, day 3, there's menstruation. Why? Because the messenger is gone. Where's progesterone? Progesterone was the messenger to say menstruation must not happen. But now the messenger is gone. So now menstruation happens. Will you remember that? It is very important. So then with it, please make a note there. There will be a sketch at the bottom here showing the thickness of the endometrium. I'm not saying it will be in the paper. I'm just saying this is a favorite type of question of examiners normally, because I've not seen the paper myself. But even in the textbook you can see below here, they show the thickness of the endometrium. They draw it normally like this, and it shows like little fingers like that. When it is thick, like from here to here, it means the endometrium inside the uterus. If I can draw the uterus for you here, here's the uterus like a pear-shaped structure. That endometrium becomes thick here after day 7, and by day about 18, it becomes quite thick, so that the embryo can be implanted there in the endometrium. This wall becomes thick. This is the endometrium. It becomes very thick. So take note of that. But once there's menstruation, the endometrium comes off. Then here in the first few days, if we come here to day 28 here, by day 1, the endometrium becomes thinner here. It shows a thin line, while here it shows finger-like structures like that. By day 25, it is thick, but when menstruation starts, it becomes thinner. So take note, they will draw it for you normally below the graph, corresponding with what happens at day 14, what happens at day 25, what happens at day 28. Menstruation starts at day 1. When menstruation starts, that's day 1. Normally it lasts up to about up to day 4 or so. So that is menstruation. So the menstrual cycle, probably you will see something about that. It's part of your assessment guidelines. This one I've got here in green, probably yours is white. Take note of that. So let's look at some other work that's extremely important. The human nervous system, responding to the environment, 40 marks. You need to know terminologies there. Like for instance, what do we mean by the central nervous system? What is the, look here, central nervous system? What is the peripheral nervous system? What is the autonomic nervous system? So I'm encouraging you to ask questions to your friends and to ask yourself. I read the word here, autonomic nervous system. Don't just accept it. Ask a friend or ask yourself, do I know what is the autonomic nervous system? Do I know what is the peripheral nervous system? If I don't know, I must check in the book, or I must ask a friend or ask the teacher. But when you come to the central nervous system, you need to know the different structures. What is the cerebrum, cerebellum, medulla oblongata? Where is it? Can I label it? And the functions. Look what it says here. You need to know the, I'm going to underline there, the functions of each of these different parts, and you of course need to be able to give the labels. A favorite question over the years, which I want to advise you to study, is this one. It's a must. You must be able to draw a diagram of the reflex arc. Do you remember the reflex arc? If maybe they will give it to you and then say, label it, or what are the labels here? But the pathway from number 1 to number 12, the pathway of an impulse, from the moment, let's say, let me use the example here, this object here is very hot. Now I'm touching it with my finger. can you explain how then the stimulus is changed to an impulse by the receptors? It goes up in the sensory nerve, and then step by step, go study at least 12 points, step by step. And if you draw the diagram, remember what it looks like? It's that one that looks like a butterfly. Go check it out. It's a must. Do you see I've marked it here? You must go and study the reflex arc, the pathway of an impulse from the moment you touch a hot object until you take your finger away. Then when we ask you to draw that, you must not draw fingers or a leg when you step in a thorn, a foot and so on. Don't draw that. You draw the butterfly-like structure with the grey matter and the white matter. Remember, the grey matter is like a butterfly in the case. It's in the middle, and you must be able to label it, draw it, and follow the pathway of the impulse from the moment you touch the hot object until you take your hand away. That is the reflex arc. And remember, the reflex arc it takes a shortcut to the spinal cord. So you're drawing a sketch of the spinal cord. It looks like a butterfly in the middle. You don't involve the brain with it. Look at disorders and the effects of drugs. What do drugs really do to the nervous system? Then, of course, when you talk about the eye and the ear, I just want to refer to the eye and the ear as part of paper 1. Please go study all the labels of the eye and the ear and the functions of the different parts. Did you write it down there? The eye and the ear, label, and the functions of the different parts. Also, how does vision work? How does it work that I can see? About hearing, how does it work that I can hear? Balance, how does balance work? And because remember, the ears also plays a role with balance. Go study the functioning of the different parts and how does it work in general. Can you describe to somebody, how does it work that I can see? You must be able to do that. How does it work that I can hear? You must be able to do that. Now, talking about this, we now come to that internal communication in the body. You've got the nervous communication, which is very fast, but then you've got this chemical communication, or what we can call chemical coordination, for 10% of your papers, 15 out of 150. Which paper is it? Paper 1, you see. We're busy with paper 1. What must you know there? Look there. Differentiate between what's the endocrine glands and what's the exocrine glands. Remember, when we study hormones, we are studying glands that secrete them straight into the blood. And those glands are called endocrine glands because they are ductless glands. So take note, you need to know here in this chapter, these basics, the difference between endocrine and exocrine. Check it out. What is a hormone? You need to know that. Then you need to know the glands that are secreting these different hormones. Like, it's actually the hypophysis, the pituitary gland, that releases ADH under the control of the hypothalamus, but you will check that out. There's the pituitary with its hormones, like the growth hormone, thyroid stimulating hormone, LH, and prolactin, FSH, all those, we spoke about them. So know which glands are secreting which hormones and the functions of the hormones. So did you write it down? The names of the hormones, where do they come from, and the functions of the hormones. Are you with me? I hope so. And I'm sure you're keeping track. And I hope you're benefiting by this discussion. We are going to emphasize today as well negative feedback of hormones as a possible longer question. That means, how does the one hormone influence the other one? And I just want to briefly show you what I'm going to write here on this paper. If you, for instance, look at the brain, here we've got the brain, and at the bottom part of the brain sits a gland which you call the pituitary gland, also called the hypophysis. Now, the hypophysis releases in the blood, it releases this hormone that travels here to your throat. Now, here in your throat sits a gland around your windpipe. You can feel here in your throat, you can feel these rings here in your throat. This is your trachea, your windpipe. Now surrounding it, there's a big gland. All of you know that gland is called the what gland? What is it called? Thyroid gland. Yes, you said correctly. The thyroid gland. Now the thyroid gland again makes a release of a hormone. So let me first say, the hypophysis releases a certain hormone called thyroid stimulating hormone. Remember, hormones stimulate or they inhibit. So the thyroid stimulating hormone stimulates the thyroid gland to release into the blood a hormone called thyroxine. Some books spell it without the E at the end, some books spell it with the E. Thyroxine is a hormone that controls how fast your metabolism should be in your body. Thyroxine, I'm telling you, if you have problems with the release of thyroxine, you'll be a very sickly person. So the thyroid gland releases thyroxine, but sometimes it happens that there is too much TSH being released, an oversecretion. Then what will happen? There will be an oversecretion of thyroxine as well, because thyroid stimulating hormone stimulates the thyroid gland to release thyroxine. So if it's too much of the one, there's too much of the other one. Now we don't speak like that in science. We don't say too much. We say there's an oversecretion, also called a hypersecretion, or we say there's a very high concentration of thyroxine in the blood. In that event, negative feedback now happens. And you need to be able to describe it in the exams. It's a must. And often they like to use this example, but they can use any other two hormones as well, those that work in pairs together. When there's an oversecretion of the first one, let's number it, number 1, the second hormone will be also affected because there will be an oversecretion. It's like a chain reaction. So then what will happen? It travels in the blood, it goes through the hypothalamus, which sits just above the hypophysis in this area here. There are chemoreceptors detecting it, and then this will inhibit. The opposite of stimulate is, please remember, hormones either stimulate or they inhibit. If there's an oversecretion of the second one, it will inhibit the first one so that less is secreted. That's now negative feedback. Less is secreted of TSH, so less will be secreted of thyroxine. Now that's the way the body balances everything out. Negative feedback. Please, people, if you want to do yourself a favor, study. Let me show it here for you again. Study negative feedback by using an example such as TSH and thyroxine. That is an example of that. When it comes to homeostasis, look at this heading here. Can you tell somebody there where you're sitting, what is homeostasis? It is to keep everything constant in the body. Everything must stay stable. Like, for instance, glucose. Glucose must stay stable. Carbon dioxide levels in the blood and the tissue fluid. Water must stay constant. You can't have too much water in your body or too little. You can't dehydrate or have too much water retention. Both are bad for you. You can die from both. The body must keep everything constant. That is called homeostasis. But how does the body manage that? Look at salts, water, carbon dioxide and glucose. Please go study how does the body manage to keep those elements the same. Temperature regulation is all about the skin. So go study the sketch of the skin, the diagram there. And remember, vasodilation and vasoconstriction means what happens when the veins open up. If you look at my hands here, dilation means it's opening up. Now more blood can flow through the little veins of the body. I'm talking about the small capillaries in the skin. If there's vasodilation, this is it. It opens up like this. Now more blood can flow to the surface of the skin. Now more heat can be lost to go out. That is vasodilation. Vasoconstriction happens on a cold day when the small capillaries in the skin do that. They close up. Then less blood flow through the surface of the skin. Now you lose less heat. Because it's a cold day, you don't want to lose heat. So temperature regulation, study it. Plant hormones, it's a favorite question. Where will the 11 marks come from? Go look at that experiment of a plant in a box. Write it down. Go look at the box a hole is made on the one side, and the plant is growing skew. It's growing towards where the light is coming from. Here the light is coming from the one side. So the plant is growing towards the light. Go look at the role of auxins in that. Also know the function of gibberellins, and ABA is the hormone abscisic acid. So those hormones have important functions in the plant. Go study that, know the tropisms. Now, if you do that, you are sure of 11 marks. But remember that experiment I told you about of how the plant grow towards the light. That's the most important part. Of course, you're also going to look at plant defense mechanisms, but I'm highlighting for you the very important things. So I think I've covered most of the important things. I just want to quickly go through this again to see if I've not missed out on anything that is extremely important for paper 1. Remember, you must have a clear understanding what is paper 1 and what is the work of paper 2. Let me just recap again. Meiosis is asked in both papers. How will we ask it in paper 1? You need to emphasize spermatogenesis and oogenesis, like I showed you the pictures. You remember that. Then it comes to reproduction in vertebrates. It's a short piece where you have to mostly understand terminology and also look at the sketch, like let's say the amniotic egg, and understand the functions of the different parts. In human reproduction, we spoke about the male and the female structures, the sketches and the functions of the different parts. Gametogenesis we spoke about. The menstrual cycle is, remember the graph I showed you. Understand that graph, discuss it in a study group together with your friends, the 28-day period. Then, something I did not mention was the development from fertilization through eventually gestation, remember, means pregnancy. Implantation, when it's implanted. You study those points each. The role, for instance, the functions of the placenta. The placenta is very, very important. It's a medical organ that forms inside the uterus during the 9-month gestation period. And then what happens briefly at birth. But what's very important is the development from the zygote until implantation happens. So here you see I've got genetics, but you'll hear a bit more from 11 o'clock. You'll hear more about the approach there. And then, as we said, responding to the environment, there you study the nervous system, the hormones, and the eye and the ear. Also look at the effects of drugs, because drugs can influence a person very negatively, like DAGA. How does it work there on the synapses? You need to know about that. Now, just to come back to the eye and the ear, what do you need to know? Remember, you wrote down there, you need to know the different parts and the functions of the different parts. You must be able to label it. And something that you really need to go and study is, especially, it's a must, that accommodation of the eye, tick it off for yourself, it's extremely important. So remember the advice I've given you today. You are going to look at each of these topics, like let's say you come here to the eye. Then it says, describe the structure and the state, the functions of the different parts of the eye. So you need to know the sketch and then the functions. Once you've tested yourself and you've seen that you understand each part of the eye, let's say the iris. What is the iris? What's the function of it? Then, if you know all the different functions of all the different parts of the eye, then you tick it off. So people, are you willing to do this? I can just imagine many of you are saying, yes, I'm willing to do that. I'm going to study each part and I'm going to study the function of each part of the eye. But then, I'm saying for a longer question, accommodation of the eye. And accommodation has to do with when you view something less than 6 meters, you're looking far off, and then you're looking close, less than 6 meters. What happens with the changing of the shape of the lens? Because that lens helps you to focus, that your picture can be focused on the yellow spot, especially on the retina, on the yellow spot of the retina, that you can see a clear picture. That whole process of the changing of the shape of the lens, go study it in detail for when you see, when you look close and then you look up further than 6 meters, or other way around, you look far and then you come closer. how does the shape of the lens change? And let me just remind you, when you look close, the lens changes from a thin, long lens, it changes more to a roundish lens when you look closer. But how is that managed by those ciliary bodies that keep it with the suspensory ligaments in position? Go study that mechanism, it's important. Then, short-sightedness, what is it? Obviously, you can only see close by objects. Why is that so? Look at each of these briefly, just briefly. And then, as I said, the ear, the same as the eye, you study the different parts, their functions, and how does it work that you can hear, and just describe when things go wrong, why it could go wrong. Briefly also look at balance. I emphasized for you the different hormones, where do they come from in the body, and what are their functions. And then homeostasis, we spoke about that you need to know how does the body manage glucose, carbon dioxide, water, and salts. Temperature regulation, the role of the skin, and then also just look at plant hormones, especially the auxins, and that experiment of the box of the plant growing towards the light. Now in paper 1, there's also that important part that you did already in grade 11, human impact on the environment. And what we have seen from our learners' results is that learners somehow battle with this easy topic. You must summarize that work. Probably your teacher has given you summaries. If not, go summarize the work in its main components. What am I talking about when I'm talking about the main components? I'm talking about the atmosphere and climate change. You see here how this learner has studied here. Study the point, tick it off, about atmosphere and climate change. 25 marks will be asked in paper 1. Go study it. What about water availability? It can make a very nice long question. Water quality is part of water. Food security is also another topic here. And then loss of biodiversity and how do we manage waste. Each of these topics, each of these 5 can make a very nice long question for section C. I've not seen the long question, but I'm telling you, it's 25 marks. The long question is 20 marks. Plus it can add a few short questions about this topic. It can make a very nice long question in paper 1. So you need to go study climate change in the atmosphere with regards to the global warming, the greenhouse effect, your carbon footprint. What is that? Go make sure what it is before you enter the exam room. I said to you in the beginning of our session, don't lie to yourself to say, it's written here, I need to know, look here. State what is meant by carbon footprint. So now, I did not study that, but I'm going to the exam room and I'm going to pass. You are busy fooling yourself. You're going to end up crying end of the year when you don't pass. Because before you go into the exam room, you must first test yourself on each of these points. Do I know what is the carbon footprint? If not, find out and explain to one another. Go to a book and help one another to understand. Look at the next one. Global warming. How can we reduce our carbon footprint in order to decrease global warming? Can I answer that? If not, now's the time to find out. So there's no time to hang around now just to do nothing, listen to music and all those things, play video games. No. You can take short breaks, but now's the time to tick off each of these to say, I've studied it, I've explained it to somebody, and I know what it's all about. Do I, for instance, know what are poor farming practices? What do farmers do? Here it says poor farming practices. All of us can read it there. It's written there. But do I know what are these poor farming practices? Go check it out in your book. Make a list of them. They will be asked. Then you can pass. People, we've come to the end of our discussion, and I just want to express my feeling to you is that each of you that have listened to this broadcast today have the ability to pass. You can do it. You've got the ability. Otherwise, you would have not been in grade 12. But don't fool yourself. You cannot pass if you don't go and study each of these points in the assessment guidelines and test yourself before we test you. I hope I see you again, and all of the best with your exams, and I hope that you'll do very well. Have a great day. Thank you.